Now, for the majority of us, when it comes to improving our athletic performance, becoming more efficient in our movement and, trying to move optimally, we tend to focus on the bigger movements, the squats, the RDLs, the movements that are what I like to call the sexy exercises. But if we really want to maximize our athleticness, we get the most out of our body, guys, we must focus on the smaller, less worked muscles that play a major role in different functions, moving properly, being able to perform certain actions as efficiently as possible. So today I'm going to show you 3 exercises that you can do, guys, in the gym, maybe at home, wherever. I'm going to give you different variations if you don't have the exact equipment that I have, but it is going to take your performance to the next level. And also it's going to safeguard you against injury, joint pain, all the other stuff. So let's go. So for the majority of us that play sport or have, some sort of athletic endeavors, you know what the hip flexors are. These are the muscles right here in the hip region that a lot of people overlook, a lot of people do not strengthen. You may stretch them because you're told to stretch them, guys, but a weak type muscle is usually one that hasn't been strengthened directly, that hasn't been, actively sought out. So today we're going to strengthen our hip flexors, and we're going to do one exercise that I have found to be very, very effective, and that is going to be the cable hip flexion. So we've got our cable set up here, guys. Now what we're going to do, now you can do this in the gym or you can buy a cable system for home. Getting very cheap to get a cable system for your house. However, we're going to place the handles around our feet, guys. We're going to let our legs come all the way out, and then we're just going to drive our knees up. We're going to keep our core nice and tight, and we're just driving the knees up. This may look like an ab exercise, but it's definitely targeting the hip flexors. Now, you can do this with bands, and I'm going to show you another variation if you don't have bands and you only have a dumbbell or something like that. But the reason why I like to do them with cables is that it can be progressively overloaded, so we can add more and more weight over time. We can have an idea of where we are at, we can count the reps, the sets, and we know when it's time to progress and move on. So the cable hip flexion, again, I'll just show you one more time from another angle so you get the movement down. So we grab the handles, we make sure the bench is far enough away so when we do extend our legs, the weight isn't crushing against the ground. That's not what we want. We want the weight suspended in the air. And you're not going to need a lot of weight for these, especially if you've never trained your hip flexors directly. But again, feet out, nice, drive up. Nice, drive up. Nice, drive up. Simple, guys. Very, very simple, and it's an effective exercise. Now, why are we working the hip flexors? Well, they're directly correlated to sprinting. And if you want to, really maximize your sprint speed, become an efficient runner, because remember, your hips are heavily involved in your sprinting as well, things like that, running, jumping, any sort of explosive movements, we need strong, mobile hip flexors. And the only way they're going to become that is if we work them directly. Now I'm going to show you another variation you can do if you don't have a cable setup that is still going to work those hip flexors. So let's say you don't have a cable, pulley system, or your gym is very, very basic. What you can do is grab a dumbbell. And the weight doesn't have to be ridiculously heavy. And what we're going to do is place the dumbbell in between our legs, or you can place it in between your ankles. It's up to you, guys. And all we're going to do is suspend ourselves from a bar, and it's going to be the same sort of motion. We're driving up, keeping this nice and under control. Now, you might say again, well, that's a core movement. It doesn't really look like it's targeting the hip flexors. Trust me, when you start doing them, you'll understand why, one, they target the hip flexors, and when you see a lot of people in the gym doing this for abs and core, they're really just working their hip flexors. You see, to work your abs to core, your spine, it has to be a flexion and extension in the spine. If you see in this movement here, my spine is not flexing or extending. Now, if I were to go like that, there's an flexion and extension in my spine, which requires the abs and the core to get involved. However, when the motion is only bringing our knees up towards the lower part of our core, that's going to be the hip flexors working, guys. So make sure you are working those hip flexors. They're very important. Make sure you're stretching them as well. And we're going to move on to the next exercise. So another muscle group, and this one isn't particularly small, but it's still a muscle group that is overlooked and under trained, is the adductors, guys. And these are the muscles that are obviously inside of the legs. They're actually quite a large muscle group. The adductors help with stabilization of the hips again. They absorb a lot of force. They allow us to cut, turn quickly, all the other stuff, and they're going to help with, especially if they're strong, they minimize or absolutely avoid groin pain, groin strains, anything to do with the groin that is injured or affecting you. These are going to help to prevent them. And the exercise we're going to be doing is Copenhagen's, guys. Now, a lot of you may have seen this, a lot of you have not. Copenhagen, we're going to place one foot on the bench, side of our foot like this. It's basically a side plank, but it's only going to be 1 foot at a time. And as soon as you raise yourself up, you will feel the sensation growing into your groin, guys. It's absolutely crazy how much this is really going to fire up those adductors, make them nice and strong. It is an isometric movement, so we'd rather be going for time than for reps. So it's a prehab and a strengthening exercise that is really going to help to keep those adductors nice and strong. We don't want no groin injuries, because that is just obviously going to limit our movement and our success. So we can do these for about, maybe start off with 30 seconds or even 20 seconds, something like that. We want to make sure our torso is nice and tall. We're driving that foot into the bench. You can bring your arm up, you can put it on your side, whatever, but we're just making sure that the adductors are getting some work. And I'll just show you from the other side, just for a different visual. Again, foot on the bench, arm nice and stacked, strong here. And we're just working those adductors, guys. Now, obviously, if you get really good at these, you can put a weight plate on your side, or you can get someone to hold a weight plate on your side, something like that, to really strengthen the adductors that much more. However, you don't really need any equipment for this. Obviously, I have a bench. You can use a chair, a sofa, a set of books, anything that you can possibly find to raise your foot on that's stable and is going to allow you to perform the movement. Very simple. You don't have to overdo these. Maybe do like 3 sets of 30 seconds each side. Even that might be too much. Maybe do 2 sets. However, the adductors must get trained. You must train them. You must make them strong. Again, for the groin health, the hip region, everything else involved in that. And again, if you have strong adductors, you're going to be more athletically efficient and optimal. Now, you might argue the case, well, I'm not strong enough to do them yet. I can't hold myself up. Well, what you can do is you can start with your knee on the bench rather than straightening your leg. That is going to reduce some of the intensity. So you can come right here. You can bring your knee onto the bench and you can start here. Put that leg nice and straight. And we just start here, guys. There's always a regression. There's always a variation we can do to make it easier until we build up the isometric strength in the groin, in the adductors, everything else involved. So there's no excuse really. You should be doing these. They don't take too long. You can do them before your leg days, after your leg days, a random day during the week. But just make sure the adductors are getting the work that they need. And that's that. And I'll show you the final exercise that you should be doing. This one's going to be good. So we're heading back to the cable machine. Now, for the majority of us, we understand that when we are doing any sort of athletic movement, the ankles, the legs are generally involved. And another muscle group, or I can call it a muscle group, that is overlooked is the tibialis area, the shins, and that involves obviously the ankle region as well, guys. So what we're going to do is some tibialis raises, or in this state they're probably call it more so a curl, but it's going to be the dorsiflexion of the ankle joint that we're going to be working, guys. We're going to be working right here. Now, if you've ever sprained or strained your ankle, you know, generally they give you a resistance band or something of that nature to help with the recovery process, to get blood flow in the area, to re-strengthen the ankle joint. However, what part of it is overlooked is that the tibialis is also getting worked. So when we do perform this movement, yes, the ankle is doing the dorsiflexion movement, but the tibialis is also getting strengthened, or some of you may know it as the shin area. So if you had shin splints or something like that as well, this is another movement that you can do to strengthen that area. And someone who's suffered from shin splints, once I started doing these, I started doing the resistance band. I found that my shin splints would either dissipate, or eventually I didn't suffer from shin splints anymore. So guys, you can do this with a cable, you can do this with a resistance band, anything like that that is going to challenge you for a couple reps. Now obviously, if you don't have a cable system, or maybe you don't have a resistance band, there is a way you can do it with just your body weight. You need to find a wall or something you can lean up against, but I'm just going to show you here for example. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up onto our heels, we're going to bring them down slow, and then we're going to rise them back up, guys. That is what is going to be the alternate variation. Now you can put a weight plate on your feet or something like that. That is really going to work, again, the tibialis, the shins, whatever you like to call them. And it's also going to help with the ankle mobility and stability. Now if you find that doing them on the floor is a little bit restrictive, you can't really get that range of motion that you're looking for, you can always come onto a step or something of that nature that allows you to get a bit more range of motion. Just make sure it's stable. This isn't quite stable, but we're still going to make it work. And we're just going to do the raises on there. That way your feet, or the front part of your feet, will have that ground clearance. And again, you can put a weight plate on your feet, or a resistance band that maybe is attached to something lower. And that is the way we're going to strengthen our tibialis. And so strengthening the tibialis is going to help with stability, number one, throughout the lower region of your legs. Deceleration, so when you're decelerating after a sprint or something like that, it's going to help with that. And obviously stability around the knee, the ankle joint as well. So obviously you're going to get some knee health in there and some ankle health as well, guys. So these are all little movements that you can do. They don't require a major setup. They're not very taxing, so you can do them at the end of a session, beginning of a session, however you like to do them. Just make sure that you are working or doing these exercises on a regular basis. And when I used to play football, we used to do Copenhagen's before we started the session to make sure everyone's groins were activated, they were getting the strengthening that was needed. So there's an option for you, or maybe at the end of the session, it doesn't matter. But these are muscle groups that you need to make sure are healthy. If they're not healthy, if they're weak, if they're not flexible or mobile, they are going to limit or hinder your athletic performance. Again, they're not sexy exercises, not the exercise that everyone would ideally focus on when trying to strengthen the body, but they are the muscles that play a crucial role in helping you be as best as you possibly can, guys. So make sure you're fitting them in somewhere. Make sure you do them on a regular basis, maybe once or twice a week. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, or you can do it before all your sessions, depending on what sport you play, to really up the levels. But it's going to help you in the long run, guys. But I appreciate you for watching. Make sure you like, you comment, subscribe if you're interested in the training program. The link is in the video description, or you can get it on my socials. But I appreciate you again. I'm out. Peace.